No need for commitment. If belief is merely a belief in the mind, just an act of reasoning, then commitment doesn't need to be renewed. Simply believing is enough. And even if it is renewed, it doesn't require a high level of intensity. But it's different if salvation is understood as a process, because it must continue to grow. So when we look at the standard of holiness that God desires us to reach, and then compare it with our current condition, which is far from that standard, it can make us feel stressed. Not in a negative sense, but in a way that pushes us to renew our surrender to God, prompting us to change and grow. Surrender isn't about handing over our problems to God. True surrender means focusing all our attention on God's plan. To become the kind of human beings He originally designed us to be, God created man in His image, after His likeness. Some of us were born Christians. It was given to us, not something we had to fight for. Many people become Christians because of their family background or through their spouse. They grow up with faith by default, but that kind of faith does not yet save. It is not genuine faith because true faith is demonstrated through action. We must understand that being a child of God is not just a status, but an existence. Only those who are increasingly becoming like Jesus are truly children of God. The question is, are we worthy of being called children of God with the kind of character we currently have? The phrase, salvation is not by works, is indeed true. But the explanation must also be correct. Salvation is God's initiative by sending His only begotten Son to bear the sins of humanity. But humans, those chosen to hear the gospel or to become Christians, must make a choice to follow Jesus or not. And this comes with conditions. If someone chooses not to follow, they should not assume or especially claim to be children of God. Because being called children of God is not just a status that is believed in or something acknowledged by a church. It's a recognition that comes from God Himself. And it is based on whether our lives are truly worthy of being called children of God. In the Bible, there is never any indication that faith can be separated from action. That's why, in the time of Jesus in the early church, when someone confessed their faith, they were immediately conditioned into action. Today, people can become Christians without any action, whether from birth or by following their spouse. But in those days, that was not possible. This is a principle that cannot be dismissed. Abraham, for example, is portrayed as the model of genuine faith, which is why he is called the father of faith. It was his actions that made him worthy of that title. That's why Scripture says, faith without works is dead. By your actions, your faith is made complete. So being more convinced does not mean being more perfect. It is our actions that perfect our faith. So let us not explain the meaning of salvation, not by works, with a wrong explanation, because that is misleading. Doctrine has the potential to simply create formulas and systematic phrases, but these do not transform people because they lack real, practical implications. Many theologians spend their time in libraries, surrounded by books, but not in the real-life encounters with God and in the daily struggle to change their character. In the end, it is action that gives life to faith. Sell all you have and give it to the poor. Then comes the process of learning, because our sinful nature does not change automatically. The faith is still immature and incomplete. Only by following Jesus will that faith grow. Even if someone sells everything and gives it to the poor, they won't instantly become like Jesus. Zacchaeus gave half of his possessions to the poor, and if he extorted someone, he returned 4 times as much. That did not immediately make Zacchaeus like Jesus, according to God's original design. But he still had to continue learning until he was able to completely let go of the world. Therefore, we must have this kind of commitment. I exist as a human being with a sinful nature, incapable of living according to your holiness. I have nothing to offer you. You lack nothing, for you own everything. I have no ability of worth to present to you, for you are all-powerful, but I am willing to struggle without limit, to break free from this sinful nature and put on the divine nature, so I can be of one mind and one heart with Jesus. That way I may do your will and complete the work you've entrusted to me. I am willing to offer anything I have for the joy of your heart. This is my commitment. If faith is merely a belief in the mind, only a rational activity, then commitment does not need to be renewed.